Cincinnati chapter not able to WebEx in, but I'll look at the slides. Thank you.
Certainly. Thanks for joining us. All right, I'm just going to recap a little bit for the recording. So my name is Eddie Gonzalez. I'm the program manager for human capital programs here at the SAME. That includes College Outreach, that oversees our student chapters. We're just going to do a quick overview today on student chapter post-relationship. And some of folks have requested information on how to get one re-engaged if they were looking to start one back up again. So I'll go through that process too. But for most of you, this should be old hat. If you have any questions about issues you're currently having, this would be as good a time as any to talk about those things as well. Before I jump into the presentation, I did want to give an opportunity for a couple of folks from the College Outreach COI that are with us to just welcome you and introduce themselves. Ron, I see you first on my list.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. My position is the senior faculty advisor. I'm also the vice chair for student contact at the universities. I've gone through the process of standing up a brand new chapter here at the Citadel. I guess I really didn't stand up a new one. It had been dormant for 20 years, so it was a restart. I have a lot of ideas about how best to do that with an academic institution that I'd be glad to share after Eddie's gone through the content he has. But look forward to visiting with you. And if you do have any questions from a faculty advisor perspective or a faculty mentor, because right now I also play the role of faculty mentor for my faculty advisor since he works for me. But great to see you all here, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ron. Okay, I see Maryland. Maryland's new in her position, so we really haven't started getting into her role. But Maryland, why don't you go ahead and introduce what you represent on the College Outreach COI?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
excellent. So I'm Marilyn Zenko. I'm the vice chair for the student chapter operations, and trying to, I'm not really sure exactly what my role is, but except to support the student chapter operations and see the progress of that. I mean, like Eddie said, I'm fairly new and I'm still trying to figure this out.
Awesome, thank you, Marilyn. Is Ann or Mike on the call? Okay, we have a couple of other people I wanted to highlight. Ann McMillan, the chair of the College Outreach COI, oversees all these efforts. And then Mike Scarano is Ron's counterpart on the mentor side. So Ron is the senior faculty advisor. Mike Scarano would be the senior mentor. And between Marilyn, Ron, and Mike, and even Ann or any committee member, but we're trying to create an infrastructure so that any questions that would come up from the post or from the student chapter side about the student chapter dynamic, between me, Janine, who I'll introduce in a second, Ron, Mike, and Marilyn, we should be able to walk you through any issue you're having or any recommendations or best practice you want to discuss. So there's always going to be somebody, if you don't know that, at the national office or on the College Outreach COI that you can connect with to talk through anything. Those roles are also, we're trying to become more proactive about reaching out to you with best practices, with trainings. Over the summer, the College Outreach COI executive team is going to be strategizing our August forum. Starting 2 years ago, every August, tied to the Post Leaders Workshop, we're going to have a forum on student chapters and student members. And this will include all of the chapter mentors, all of the faculty advisors for this coming one, because it'll still be virtual. But starting next year again, we're going to go back to in-person conferences. So the idea is that this forum would be co-located with PLW, and we would come up with a select representative group that SAME would sponsor to come down to the PLW location so we can have the forum in person. So again, we're really trying to add more layers of support, guidance and infrastructure to not just student members, but student chapters. So hopefully that'll be more useful to you. And in that same category, I want to introduce Janine Fenton, who's on the call. She's a new staff member who just started on Tuesday. Her role is going to be focused on our STEM outreach, everything from K to 16. So K through 12 STEM outreach, camps, and college outreach are going to be her primary focus. This is all part of a new move we're making at the Society to really understand how students come to us and how we can shepherd them through different experiences and really get them to become professional members. A lot of what we're doing, the ultimate metric is, are they in the industry, and staying in the industry, are we able to then represent them as an industry member? So that's, we're adding some depth in programming with Janine coming on board. She'll match up with me on the enlisted young professional and leader development side that looks at the more professional level. And then we have a new IGE director who's looking at the technical committees. And some of this is also opportunities for us to connect our student members to those technical COIs. Janine, do you want to just say a few words about your background? Because I think it's very relevant to these folks.
Right, sure. I'm Janine Fenton. I was most recently working at the American Society of Civil Engineers with pre-college outreach. And while there, was part of the program to bring out the IMAX film Dream Big, Engineering Our World. I've been looking at how we can support that pipeline from pre-college and on into college for quite a while. Before that, I've got a bit of a broad background. I've worked for public libraries. I worked in the museum field for quite a long time as things like the supervisor of school programs for places like the Maryland Science Center. I helped develop a museum, Liberty Science Center, up in the New York area. And I have been doing, pre-college STEM before they even called it STEM. So please feel free to ask me any questions, and also, look at that, how we take the messaging that's needed to encourage students to think about careers in STEM, and then use that to get them into college, and then when they're in college to connect them with the professional pipelines.
Thank you, Janine. Yeah, so a lot of her experience is going to be really helpful as we are still trying to get momentum behind a lot of these efforts. So she's coming in at a good time to help us strategize that. Okay, just to make sure, did Anne or Mike join us? No, okay. I'm going to run through just a quick slide deck about the background about why we're doing all this, and then at any time I'll try to look at the chat box to see if any questions come up, but feel free to just pipe up. I may mute some of you if we start getting feedback, so just notice if you're on mute or not. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. So again, this presentation is a response to some comments we got during one of the College Outreach COIs about a couple of posts that were rethinking about their student chapter relationship, and another post that was contemplating it but wanted to get some background on what it takes to host a student chapter. So this is just a general presentation that I've done for posts. I'm happy to repeat this for any group that any of you want to organize in your specific geography, to get us to the next level if you are contemplating a post. I just heard today from in the Cleveland area, they're looking to set up a chapter there, but there's no posts nearby. So what do we do in those kinds of examples? All of those things are, all those things are things that the College Outreach COI should be able to address so that we can captivate any interest that might come our way. All right, so feel free to jump in if you have questions. So the first piece to jump in is why have a student chapter? Really, it's to provide an extra level of engagement to our student members. We have general benefits that any student member can access, but being part of a student chapter to me would infer some sort of extra level of customer service, extra level of mentoring, extra level of really cultivating these students as potential folks that are going to go into a STEM profession at one level, but in to our industry at another level. All of this is also tied into our strategic plan. There are other, we can connect to some of the other ones, but our primary one is goal 4, enrich the STEM pipeline for the nation. Again, this goal puts some responsibilities on every part of the society to figure out where they fit within this goal. And for us, student chapters is one of the more evident programs that we do that helps us achieve this goal. If we can get better about not just the best practices of that engagement, but then the tracking and the assessment of our efforts into the professional career levels, we can really make some positive statements about what we're doing to meet this goal. A little snapshot about student membership. I mean, it's I think we're at, I want to say something like 21,000 members, but we're realizing that a lot of our members aren't really active. We probably are less than several thousand inactive members versus historical members. I think the same kind of thing relays down to our student membership category. Right now, we're at about 2,000 student members, but I can't tell you exactly how these student members came to us, who's really providing their initial entry level support and guidance. So we have a student membership that we need to provide customer service and programming to, but we're also trying to get a better handle on how students come to us so that we can engage them in those entry points. And student chapters are, I think, one of the easiest ways for us to be recruiting student members and getting them into the society. But just some quick stats about them. Right now we have 597, and actually these numbers are from August, so I apologize, I haven't updated them, but they probably wouldn't change significantly. But we do have unaffiliated student members that don't connect with a post right now. Not that every student member should be associated with a post, but those that aren't are likely not going to have as good of an experience as those that are connected to a post. That's why we want to make sure that where the post has an opportunity to engage students, we want that capture at that point so that the national office can then provide the overarching customer support to them. In a lot of institutions that are involved, one of the bigger conversations that College Outreach is going to be tackling is how to create a value argument for academia in general, not just those that are hosting student chapters, but we want to be a society that academic members might feel more at home in on the technical side as well as the programming side. So there'll be more opportunities there to expand our view of how we engage their institutions as well. Quickly, benefits of student membership. I mean, every post as they're interacting with students should be able to talk about the fact that, and actually, shoot, I didn't even put it on here, but the very first one is that it's a free membership. So, and the membership committee recently did put a limit of a 25-year age with the thought that anybody above that has been likely in the professional world, even if they go back to being a student, that they could either get their own financial support or get hosted by a post. But otherwise, anybody under 25, post high school, not graduate school though, is considered a student member and is eligible for free registration. We are still having an issue of marketing to them when they're about to age out or when they graduate to do that crossover into the young professional. So that'll be an activity we'll spend more time this coming year focused on. But by being a student member, they then get access to student chapters if they're in their area. We have a virtual student chapter that provides professional development webinars. This past year, we did one on resumes, one on interviewing. The Space Force presented on their structure. And our next one that I'm about to send a note out is on June 16th. Victoria Meckley, who used to be the chair of the Young Professional COI, is going to do a webinar on personal branding. You know, I want to get us to the point where all our student members have LinkedIn pages if it's appropriate. They have a digital presence. They know how to communicate themselves. Those are all things, skills that we want to prepping them for before they enter the workforce so they can be more competitive. And the virtual student chapter is how we provide those webinars. Internships is something we need to focus more on. Right now, I'm working on an advertisement from a company in Chicago that they're recruiting about 6 interns. We have an opportunity for companies to post internship listings on our job bank for free, but we hadn't gotten to the point of marketing that kind of opportunity. So there's still some chicken and the egg things that we need to work through. But for companies that I have spoken to, Qit hosts 600 interns a year, and they don't recruit through us right now. So I want to get these companies, our sustaining members, to see us as the primary recruitment channel for their students. And you, as the post representatives hosting these student chapters, should be emphasizing that to your sustaining members, because we want those members to feel like our student members are an inside track for them. Scholarships, not every post offers them. Right now, we don't have any out of the national office, and we really make it a point to say that is the post's realm, because it helps with their community building, it helps with all the local engagement. So scholarships are hosted by our posts, and ideally, if you're a post that hosts a student chapter, somehow that eligibility is being marketed to those student chapter members. If it's a high school scholarship, we'd like to get into a habit of, as your high school student scholarship recipient graduates and goes to a school that has a student chapter, make sure they get introduced to that and to the sponsoring post so that they can maintain a post-level connection once they go off to college, so we don't lose them. But that would, the scholarship area is one place where that can happen. And then mentoring programs as well. Not every post has them, but we have a leader development team that is working on a toolkit for posts on developing a scholarship, a mentoring program focused on scholarship recipients. So any post that's offering scholarships or just wants to do mentoring will be able to utilize that toolkit to start making connections at the high school level. And it'll give some best practice recommendations on how to do that. Education and training. This is a new area as well for us to highlight. The idea here is that students are members. We really need to start emphasizing the membership, the member part of that, of their student membership. And that includes them coming to and finding value in coming to our national events. We had a plan for FMW last year before we had to cancel it, where we had convened a number of Texas-based universities, and we were going to bring in truckloads of students and offer a nice facilitated experience for them. That got put on hold. Fast forward to JETC this past year, 2 weeks ago. We had a student reception, we had a student orientation to the virtual platform, and we had sessions that we highlighted for the students and had some young professionals set up as mentors. We haven't done our AAR to see how everything went, but we had about 33 students register at the conference. So hopefully they felt they got something out of it. SBC is a little bit of a different topic. I think there's connectivity there for our students to know how contracting works, how the whole procurement process works, but we're gonna need folks that have a sense of how to communicate that to students that might be willing to put a session together or a workshop for us for SBC. But otherwise, we're already thinking for next JETC in Denver, we want to have the ability to host students, have post-sponsor students to come to that, especially those of you that are hosting student chapters. We'd love to get your officers to JETC, especially those that are in the geographic area. We really want JETC to feel like a welcoming event for them as student members. So there'll be more opportunities there to discuss. The communities of interest are also something they should all be looking into. We've got a whole range of technical interests. So, if your students are doing research on particular topics, there are a technical resource in these COIs for them to be accessing, and they can join as members like anybody else and attend their webinars. And, if they're confident enough and comfortable enough, they can engage as any other member could in those communities of interests. So anything that I'm mentioning that needs more discussion, I'm always happy to have us set up a follow-up conversation. So feel free to reach out and let me know. And then the magazine, they all get access, digital access to the TME magazine, and hopefully that serves as a good resource to them. Now, I mentioned the role of student chapters adds that extra layer to our being able to provide a good experience for student members. But it also allows us a way to tap into innovative thinking that we may not think about is useful or beneficial to the professional world that we represent. But, the way I see these student chapters, they're a gateway to university programs, university departments, community college programs that are doing workforce development. Anything that you can start identifying as needs within our industry where an academic partner could be of assistance, I would be looking at this partnership as beneficial both ways. It's the students learning from us, but it's us utilizing the students, the chapters, and the academic partners as assets. Beyond that, we're really not focused at all on the programmatic focus of a student chapter. If one chapter wants to organize just on robotics because that's their thing in their university, that's up to them, or cycle through, or we want to be able to have the students cultivate ideas that they find interesting, but also highlight when it matches up with industry needs that makes them more competitive once they graduate. And also that we represent the interdisciplinary component of our industry. We're not so focused on our individual disciplines, but that also includes, the business side of what we do, everything from economics to social science to law. We want well-rounded members understanding the full breadth of what it takes to be a professional in our industry. Tony, yes, I will be making this available afterwards. So, and we can always set up a individual presentation if you need. A little bit more of the purpose, it's to provide benefit to the students, as I mentioned, but also provide benefit to SAME. We really need to be highlighting both of these value statements to, in my opinion, have this relationship be something that can be sustained. Because as soon as either side feels it's not useful to the other, that's where we end up losing interest and losing engagement. All right, so now jumping into the meat of what we're here to talk about. Ultimately, the posts are the key to our student chapters. We don't do a lot of programming out of the national office. We can provide parameters and guidance and the infrastructure and the networks, but the success of these student chapters involves, in my opinion, a very invested and engaged posts. Posts that want to invest in the futures of these students. They want to have a mechanism for us to cultivate new talent, and also to really hit at that fourth strategic goal of making sure that there is a workforce ready that the nation can access. I connect to these programs at that strategic philosophical level because I guzzle the Kool-Aid and I love what we do. So student chapters is where I love seeing our mission really come to action. They are members too, so in that they play a role in making sure that as a society we are able to accomplish our mission. So maybe for a student chapter, it's going into the high schools and the elementary schools and giving presentations as someone that's a little bit more peer proximity, anyway, closer to them in age. You know, we want posts to be thinking, oh, there's an opportunity here, or a college chapter to say, hey, we'd love to, you know, do some outreach events and have the posts support that. That all plays into our ability to hit goal 4. The other aspect is that these should be student-led. The post is there to kind of provide quality assurance and quality control. It is an SME branded program, so we want these chapters to, you know, operate at a certain level. But beyond that, it's a leadership development opportunity. We want these chapters to have some sense of autonomy and ability to fulfill their own mission as a student-led organization. We're here to support them in whatever way we can, but we want the chapters to be engaged enough so that they're defining their own futures. A quick snapshot of where we are with our student chapters. When I started 3 years ago, we were up to about 61 chapters, and most of them were historical. We had them at some point. There was no activity anymore. The post wasn't really clear on where the history was. So we scrubbed them all from our website and started rebuilding the list based on status reports that we asked posts to send us. If you have a chapter and you're not on this list, that means either I've missed it or we haven't gotten a status report from you in a while to add you. There may be 1 or 2 that I just didn't update. So, but the point is now we want to be better about who are our chapters, who's managing them, and how, you know, what's their state. We haven't gotten to the point of assessing all the chapters yet, but I think that's one of the next level now that Janine's on board, is going through all of these chapters and just seeing, you know, where you could use support, but following up with each chapter individually, with each chapter mentor. It's something that we haven't had the ability to do before. I'll also make a side note here. I forgot to mention when Ron was speaking, we are starting to host regular conversations of mentors and faculty advisors. So in addition to the forum that we'll hold in August, we are trying to have, you know, more regular check-ins with the mentors and the faculty advisors to just address things as they come up, so that things aren't sitting too long, and then it creates more of an issue for us to address later. All right, the nitty-gritty here. Basically, everything I'm mentioning from now on is mentioned in the guidance manual that was attached to the note I sent out. Everything is also available on the College Outreach COI page. We're in the process of creating a landing page for student chapters that'll help aggregate all these things, so you're not having to sift through various other pages. But it'll probably be still a few more months. Hopefully we'll have it all ready for the fall, for when you all get started again. But the main responsibilities of the post are to, at the start, establish or update a charter. Each of these student chapters, in order to be official, needs to have a charter, and there's a template on the COI page that you can download. It's pretty easy, but it does ask you to identify officers, the mentor, and the post, just to commit everybody to those pieces being accounted for before we move forward. If you are looking to start one, you know, again, I can have a direct conversation with you about this process, so feel free to let me know. As part of the charter, I mentioned they have to identify a mentor. So this is that key person at the post side that is going to be the liaison to any post resource. Any guidance from the post would come from the chapter mentor. Providing financial support as well. We have a lot of posts that still somehow think that there's a national budget for these chapters. We are hoping to have support to be able to engage students and chapters in different ways. We just held a competition, and the top 3 teams won a $500 award. So we'll be making those kinds of announcements. But beyond that, anything day to day really is going to come from the posts as far as activities. But there's no parameters there. It's really the posts working with the chapter to see what's realistic. And then the last thing is, to make sure that the chapter does feel like they're a part of the post. We are, as one of our best practices, going to start recommending that posts set up a student leader position on the board if they really want to be maintain some active engagement at the student member side. For posts that have a student chapter, that could easily default to the student chapter president, or you have it be a liaison type situation. But the point is that student chapters should always feel like they are a program of the post, that they have a presence in the post. Another best practice is we'd like all the posts to create a tab on their post website that highlights the chapter, gets the chapter branded a little bit as part of our network, and just creates a space where the chapter can do better recruitment by being represented at the post level on the website. All right, so specifically with the mentor, again, this is that main point of contact at the post. Everybody at the post should know they are connected to a student chapter, but our communication from national will likely go through the mentors at the post level and the faculty advisors at the academic level. So for the mentors, it's really providing guidance and oversight into the operations. We have a case right now with a chapter where the officer and the post are not meeting eye to eye on how the student chapter is supposed to function. So they've reached out to us to provide some facilitation, but there's a chance that student chapter may end up being disbanded, because of the issues that are going on. These aren't just clubs that it's great if you're doing them. They're extensions of our brand. They are ways for us to reach into the community and to engage these students. So there does need to be an investment in how well the student chapter is functioning and an awareness of its status as well. That leads into, a well-functioning relationship will ideally result in programming opportunities. The easiest ones are have the post work with the chapter to coordinate connections to industry government members. We want to be a resource for these students to be competitive in the workforce, including giving them a leg up on any connections that the post has to local industry members. That should be seen as a value we can provide them, but also the students can be engaged in activities that the post wants to do. If the post wants to do a science fair or support a science fair, or if the post gets asked to do an outreach event from a local library, this should be the kind of thing that you could go to your young professionals and your student chapter and say, hey, we got invited to do this. Can you see if you've got two or three students that are willing to go into X school or X library on this day? Those should be kind of the low-hanging fruit as COVID allows us to go back in-person activities that we can start doing. All the way up to more scholarly efforts. I mentioned our competition. It was a very generic competition modeled after some guidance we got from the San Antonio Post, but it was to just capture student design projects and see what kinds of projects we would get. The top 3 projects, one is focused on new guidance for sea barriers in Boston to compensate for sea level rise. Another project it wants to build a low-cost electronic deer repellent that can be placed on roads to avoid deer automobile collisions. And then the third one is a low-cost ventilator that was part of a Citadel challenge to look at some ideas within the COVID landscape. So at least 2 of those ideas could be brought to market, in my opinion, with the right interest from industry. The Boston one, there's some municipal relevancy there to be able to try to get that over into a municipal audience. but at the very least, we want them presenting to the Resilience COI about their idea. And those are the group of technical experts that would be best positioned to know how their research could be useful. That's something that I don't feel like we're not seeing them as innovators as much as we could, especially given that that's what all they're doing right now is thinking innovatively as part of their course work. So I see these student chapters as mini R&D shops, mini think tanks. You bring a problem to them, let's see what they come up with. And the mentor would ideally have a sense of where those opportunities are. The next item is any recognition, making sure that this is part of that the student chapters feel a part of the post. We want the post to recognize student leaders. We want them to recognize the chapter for any efforts they do, and feel like that they're a member just like any other member in the posts. And then lastly, this is an area we'll want to do a little more work with, and the Young Professional COI is already getting themselves prepared for this as well. They were the hosts of the 2 events we did at JETC, and they're the ones that recruited the mentors for them. So we really want to be more purposeful about, as students graduate, we want a welcome message from the Young Professional COI. At your level, if you've got a young professional point of contact at your post, that's something that the mentor could work with on your graduating seniors. Have they all gotten a brief on what being a student member is all about? All right, faculty advisor requirements. A lot of this is more administrative. If it's an administrative contact, sometimes you'll have a faculty advisor that is a catch-all for all the student organizations, and they're really not going to be as connected programmatically. They're likely only going to be as interested in the administrative pieces of the chapter. So you may end up with a dual, the official faculty advisor, but more of a programmatic faculty advisor that might be coming from one of the departments. The administrative piece would be the more critical piece here, because we want all these chapters to be official entities within their academic institutions. So making sure that we've gone through all the processes to get them recognized. The faculty advisor would ideally help us with that. But they also are our gateway to school resources. If there's money that's available to the student organizations, make sure that the faculty advisor would hopefully make sure that the student chapter knows about all those resources, how to access them, how to reserve a room for any events that they might want to host on campus, all the way through to, does the university have access to school buses or those kinds of things. Again, our faculty advisors are at various stages of awareness of who we are and their role. So some of this is a moving target as far as getting them up to speed. But as the post, you should also know who your faculty advisor is and what level of engagement you've had with them. Again, these are student-led, so the student officers become the next really important level of key contacts at the student chapter. One aspect of our student chapters is that a number of them are interdisciplinary, so it's not just SAME, it's ASCE, it's ASME. A chapter can represent multiple disciplines and multiple societies, so I'm really just focused on our piece of it, but there may be other bigger strategies at work with that particular chapter that you'll just have to help us figure out how to best support that. But regardless of how the chapter is formed, we do want a student leadership body that's providing the guidance to their overall activities with some support from the post. If the post is having to really step in and get them organized all the time, we may have to have a conversation of if there's enough interest there to sustain a student chapter. But we will always go off your guidance. That wouldn't be something that the national office, unless there's an issue we need to step in on. That's not something we would make a judgment call on. Semi-annual reporting, I'll get to that in a second, but to make sure that the mentor has all the information they need for reporting, change of officers, examples of activities they've done. It's up to them also to make sure that they do have a continuity of leadership. we end up with a lot of turnover, graduating students that don't get backfilled. So, we don't want to be surprised by any of these things, because that really impacts momentum and can really bring down everything we've worked for. We can it really impacts our ability to move some of these activities to the next level, and that all the students are student members of SAME and are seen as active members of that post as well. Okay, David has a question here. Finding a permanent faculty can involve a significant effort. It's more than finding a warm body. Yes. So, David, is this an ongoing issue, if you want to reiterate it for the group, or is this something you've had to address and have some sense of how to do it?
Thanks, Eddie. It's ongoing. We've had some success over the years in getting faculty advisors and sponsors at the universities of Nebraska and Lincoln and Omaha. But what we're finding more and more is that those faculty members are already overloaded with all kinds of other responsibilities. And of course, they have other engineering societies who are vying for their attention, and really kind of trying to, if you're not already engaged with the university, I mean, you just don't show up at the door one day and say, at the engineering department, and say, hey, I need a faculty advisor for this organization. You need somebody who understands and understands that the post is going to carry the burden of to do the heavy lifting, basically. But still, it can be daunting. It can be daunting to find an individual who is appropriate for the type of activities that you're involved with, even if you can explain to them or assure them that that the responsibilities are not as significant as they might imagine. But again, just getting there and finding out what the pool is of faculty members who might be qualified or might be willing to participate is a hurdle to overcome. So yeah, it's been a challenge and they come and go. That's the other thing, is that already you're talking about an organization that involves members who are only there for a few years, the students, and same kind of challenge finding leaders who are willing to step up. But we're doing the best we can, and actually it's our students that are giving us the most insight.
Right. Yeah, and Ron may have more to add, but I definitely, it's a challenge I've heard frequently on the academic side. So, I guess because we have the mentor role, I think the default for me would be to see them as really an administrative person, make sure we're official, and that the school knows about us. Anything more relationships we can build programmatically, can be compensated for on the mentor side, representing the post itself and all the resources the post might bring. But we also have talked about how to make being a faculty advisor more of a treat, or of a professional development opportunity. So I think one of the past meetings we talked about budgeting for an annual faculty advisor meeting as well, not just bringing mentors in or including them when we convene at PLW, so that or at one of our JETSEs, so they get the conference as an added benefit. It is a free membership, but for some that's not really the same. It doesn't entice them as well as getting to be involved in certain programs that we're running. But
hey, Eddie, can I make a quick suggestion?
Yep.
Hey, this is Phil from Cincinnati. I'm unfortunately not able to go in on the chat site. I would just offer to you the ROTC cadre for most universities who are faculty members and are tied in to all things faculty and administration on the campuses are really fantastic mentors. And we have gone back and forth between the Air Force ROTC program and the Army ROTC program with phenomenal results in both instances. they're very eager to help. And I'd be glad to give you some insights in some of the stuff if you'd like to just talk offline about what's working for us in Cincinnati.
Travel in Jacksonville. We're in fact doing the same here with this in here. It's Army and Navy ROTC. So we have a faculty advisor from UNF, but we're getting them involved too, and they're very enthusiastic. So
and I appreciate that. We actually have tapped into the ROTC folks, and again, our students are the key to that. There's some administrative minutia that has to go on at any given university anyway, because the student chapters have to register with organizational component of oversight components within the university systems. But we do tap into the ROTC. But one of the things that we're trying to recognize is that this is not a military engineering organization. This is an engineering and architecture and other associated, even business development organization. So, we're trying to broaden our appeal rather than focus it, on just, for example, while ROTC can be a kind of an entry point. We want people to understand that it's not military just because that's in our name.
Yeah, there's a mantra that Joe says that I feel like we just need to put on all our headers that even though we're SAME, you don't have to be American, in the military, or an engineer to join.
Absolutely, we deliver that message over and over to all of those prospective members.
It's tough though, but this is where I'm hoping. Part of the reason why we want to create more landing pages about this work is so that you have more places for people to point people to where they see what you're talking about. If they go to our student chapter page, it wouldn't have anything about military unless we're highlighting a military institution-based chapter. So we want to make it easier for you to highlight that sentiment. So
just to amplify on that, and completely agree with everything that's been said, but by the same token, I'm ROTC commission officer, retired military, and my concern is that I'm seeing the military drifting away from the university, and I think it's a great opportunity to put in the mind of these young cadets and midshipmen. And SAME is also available to them when they go into active duty, and I think this is a great place to do it.
I just want to reinforce that. That is a great point. And one of the things about the Army ROTC program is that when a student, a cadet, is in a leadership role of a recognized university organization like SAME student chapter, they can add that to their order of merit list resume that they submit to their PMS. And that gets them points on the OML, and that gets them a higher score overall on the national banner, if you will. So just some things to think about. I think the military side, I get you want to make sure it's not just military, but there are some huge benefits to making sure you engage that sector as well. Just some thoughts.
Sorry, my daughter just came into the house yelling she's vaccinated. Both great points, and we have started engaging National Junior ROTC for our camps because we want to engage the Junior ROTC members in our high school level programming, but we haven't. ROTC has been on my list for a while as well. I think at some point we will likely need a subgroup within College Outreach to help us with that strategy because there is a huge opportunity and there's huge numbers there, but I want to make sure we have all the conversations mapped out so that when we approach them, we know where to point them to on the website. Everything's clear about how they can be engaged. But yeah, the non-military is not at the exclusion of military. It's more that we're more than just, but military members would obviously be a prime candidate pool for us. Awesome. Buddy, you had mentioned professors of practice. Can you just quickly mention what that is and what you do with them?
Yeah, okay. Basically, professors of practice are many people from industry who may be at the university and they're going to be there for a period of time, but they really come out of industry and teach some of the different, construction management courses, different courses that may be very industry oriented. But the ones that we have actually at Texas A&M are SAME members too. And so they understand IGE and they understand SAME. And so that may be something that any of you might be able to check at the university, find out if, say, well, matter of fact, John Walewski's on the line and he works with many of them. I don't know if I think, John, you aren't a professor of practice, are you?
I am a professor of practice, yeah.
Yeah, and so basically, there are a number of them in many departments, and finding them and then introducing them or bringing them into the fold may be an option. We found that ROTC people somewhat rotate, and they aren't a long-term asset. But the professors of practice are already SAME members in many cases.
That might be a good, this is where we definitely need more guidance within the College Outreach COI on how to capture these as best practices. The forum is going to be one opportunity, and maybe as we strategize that, we have a separate conversation for ROTC in general. We've already talked about a subgroup just focused on the academic component, so there might be some crossover here. But these kinds of ideas, if any of you are interested in helping us develop that concept into a best practice, we could certainly use more support at the college outreach level and then, all we really need to do is put it down on paper, and then we announce a webinar on it and, can get that kind of best practice to a wider audience.
Well, the interesting thing, Eddie, is that so many of the societies, student societies, are subsets of a department. If it's ASCE, the civil engineering department, so you start looking at it, and SAME really doesn't have a department.
Yeah.
We almost need to have people who understand the organization, if in fact they happen to be at the university. It doesn't matter what department they're in. But student chapters are trying to learn how to become adults in a general sense in many cases, as opposed to going in and working with their particular type of professor, whether it's their line of work and everything. And so we get that group of students that when we bring them in, we remind them that one of the things we're going to do is introduce you to people in industry. After, during school and after you get out, we are going to help you become an adult in industry. And very few of the other chapters really focus on that. Great. I know Ron's going to disagree because he focuses on all that stuff. And so, but most of the places I've seen, the student chapter in ASCE or ESME or anything else is going to be talking about mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and everything, and we talk about business. So it's just a little different.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Dave commented that he hadn't heard that term or the position. So, I think that would be the kind of thing that if we could somehow introduce how those folks are identifiable and highlight that, that's definitely a best practice that some universities or mentors could be utilizing to get more engagement on the academic side. We just need to figure out how to unpack that a little more, buddy, for this audience. All right. We're kind of getting to the end here. So really quickly, I mentioned part of our restructuring was instituting this online or the annual status report. We ask for them in May and December of every year so we can capture changes per the semester. But we don't get one from everybody. You know, in reality, we just need to get one when there's changes. But we're kind of going to assume there's changes at least once a year with folks graduating. So right now, everybody that's on the list stays on the list. With Janine being here, we're probably going to be a little bit better about seeing who we didn't get reports from and making sure that there's no changes. But for now, yeah, that's the process. Is this is where you can tell us who the mentor, faculty advisor, and your student officers are. And that's our signal that you're still up and running. Or just send us a note saying no changes, all good.
Do you want us to send no changes? With the pandemic and being online distance learning, it was very difficult to do student officers, like nearly impossible.
Yeah, Paige, I mean, for you, it would really be more that these are still active chapters. You're just in a hiatus at the moment because of all that. Yeah, we just want to know that it isn't just all of a sudden disappeared and nobody at the post knows what's going on.
Super. As soon as they can resume, they will, but it's just been crazy tough.
Yes, and until you tell us, we would expand a chapter anyway. You know, like I said, all the ones that are on the list now because we've received something from you. So it's really just more maintaining that. And for now, we'll just assume no news is good news.
Okay, I'll send you an email too.
Cool. So just in closing, you know, you have the entire community outreach COI at your disposal. I need to add Janine here as an additional national point of contact as she gets up to speed on our work. But we'll also be convening more regular groups of mentors and faculty advisors. The forum in August is something you can, you'll start hearing about. And then I also want to be better about communicating to you all the virtual student chapter webinars so that you can make sure to emphasize, highlight them to your posts, chapter members, so that they take advantage of those trainings. And that is it.
Hey, Eddie, this is Phil. I've got to drop off the line. Can I steal 30 seconds real quick with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, I just want to say, one, I think this is a great forum, and I really appreciate you guys setting this up. I just want to kind of add a little bit of momentum. You were saying, let's have a forum and talk about best practices. I think that is a great idea. I would love to contribute to that, and I know there's some super initiatives going on all over the states with the chapters. I'd really like to have a chance to hear, somebody talk for 10 minutes about this is our recruiting. Somebody else talks about this is how we got our foot in the door at the College of Engineering. Somebody about this is what we did during COVID because we couldn't have events. We did a bunch of virtual stuff. I would love to hear some of those ideas. I just like to throw my hat in the ring. If I can help you with any of that stuff, please let me know. I appreciate everybody sharing today. A really good forum. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm highlighting on the College Outreach page is the proceedings from the one we did this past August. So take a look at that. We had different sessions breaking down the different discussions about some of the content we covered. So there's already stuff up there for you to backtrack. And then, yeah, as soon as this next one comes together, we'll make sure everybody gets invited.
Sounds great. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Any other questions before we close? There's lots more to come. Today was really just to give you an introduction. If you need a more specific presentation, let me know. Jim, there really isn't a best practice for number of universities involved. It's really what the post can sustain and how well you can organize yourself. He's asking about having more than one school involved in the same student chapter. When I was talking to Steve out of Cincinnati with the Coast Guard, that's what they're looking at. They have a number of universities there, but no posts. So we're starting to think about what would a virtual chapter be with a lead volunteer managed out of the College Outreach COI, but not necessarily through a post. So any variation you can come up with, I think we could find a way to make it work if it gets the students engaged. So yeah, let's set up a separate conversation if you want to dive into that a little deeper.
This is Janine. I'll just mention something there. You know, you have to consider how far the students can travel. So if you do happen to have a couple of different schools that are geographically really close together, it's probably possible to, you know, combine them. But trying to get people, you know, to travel even 20 miles, you know, 5 miles can be tough for a student. So those are issues to consider.
Yeah, I think it would only really make sense in a more virtual environment for, you know, those kinds of arrangements, which is, I think, what the Cincinnati group is looking at, how to connect. It would be because the post would be really far away, so they would be connecting virtually anyway. Before we close, Janine, any other thoughts on what things that we've covered that you want to just highlight?
No, I've been, you know, listening with a great deal of interest and making notes of things, and I'm digesting a lot of great ideas that are coming out of this meeting, and you know, starting to identify some things, some ideas for future interactions.
Great. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm hoping these folks will see an increase in the amount of support we can provide everyone. So thanks for joining us on board. Any other questions from the field before we sign off? I will update on that same College Outreach page. I'll put a link to the recording for this if anybody wants to go back to any of the things we covered. Otherwise, yeah, just let me know if you want to talk more in depth about anything that came up. Awesome. Thanks, y'all.